In this week's Gaming Roundup, Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League brings up a major issue. The next Mortal Kombat game might be announced, and more Dead Space Remakes coming. Let's jump into the very first news, and that is Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, which we got to see a brand new gameplay of in the PlayStation State of Play. And we got to see everybody just jumping in the air and shooting those purple bits in literally everything, whether it's tank, monsters, it's all purple bits, that's where you shoot. It was very hard to recognize the city of Metropolis. We would see some things here and there which is related to DC, and that's how I get to know that, okay, we are in a city of DC. If you have friends, then you can definitely try out the 4-player co-op, otherwise you can actually play single-player games with the other characters being the bots. However, there's a big issue. You need to have an internet connection in order to play single-player. No official reason was given of why it was the case. It also means that if Warner Brothers decided to just remove the game or shut down the servers, then you will not be able to play the game at all because of the internet connection requirement. The recent co-op game Gotham Knights also had a single-player option, and you could do it offline. And the same was the case for Marvel's Avengers. Even Back 4 Blood had a online-only mode available for a while, and then they removed that feature in an update. Now, Rocksteady has a close place in my heart because they made amazing Batman games, but having a live service game with battle passes and stuff like that, it makes me worried about this game very much, but I'm hoping that this game does well. Now we know that there is a Street Fighter 6 coming and also Tekken 8 coming along the way, so what about a Mortal Kombat game or maybe an Injustice game? Well, it looks like Warner Bros. Discovery CEO mentioned that Mortal Kombat 12 is set to release this year. It's interesting because the developers, NetherRealm, are completely silent about this particular game coming out this year, and a lot of people actually speculated that they might be working on another Injustice game. But Jeff Grubb, the journalist, actually mentioned last year that NetherRealm is prioritizing Mortal Kombat instead. Now, Mortal Kombat is a game that will sell easily very well because it's a popular game, it's been going on for so long, and it somehow does a great job every single year. Mortal Kombat 11 was a huge success, sold 15 million copies worldwide, and was also among the top 5 games sold on the PS4. What do you want from Mortal Kombat this time around? Let me know. Now we know that every year we have the same kind of games releasing over and over again, and 2 of those games are first-person shooters, and one of them is Battlefield. Now we already know last year that EA revealed a new Battlefield studio led by Halo co-creator Marcus Leto by the name Ridgeline Games, and they are working on the narrative campaign in the Battlefield universe. It looks like DICE is now going to be a co-developer on this project because they are building up a team to help Ridgeline Games on the single-player aspect of the game. DICE themselves are working on the multiplayer aspect of the game, and another studio, Ripple Effect, is also working on another thing about Battlefield, which is a completely different project. The last Battlefield game, Battlefield 2042, did not have any single-player campaign, and that definitely worked out very well. So now they're making sure that they actually make a good campaign, and looks like DICE wants to put their hands on it a little bit. There was also a rumor on 4chan of what this single-player experience would be like, but again, it's 4chan, most of it is usually false anyway. It's great to see that EA has divided different studios to work on different aspects of the Battlefield game. I hope that this would help Battlefield in the upcoming future, but the most important thing is how they mentioned that this is a connected Battlefield universe. Not so sure what that means yet, but I hope it's good. Now, speaking of another shooter game that was supposed to not release this year but is now releasing this year anyway, and that is Call of Duty. A report by Bloomberg says that this year we will see a new game which is set in the Modern Warfare era. It was earlier supposed to be an expansion to Modern Warfare 2, but now it's a full-fledged game, which means that you get to pay $70 once more this year. It is being developed by Sledgehammer Games and also supported by Infinity Ward. Again, this year was supposed to be the very first year that Call of Duty would skip, but it looks like Activision could not fathom that, and they are releasing another Call of Duty game. In a very similar fashion, Sledgehammer Games had to make Vanguard, and it did not go so well. And right now they're making another game, which is very concerning at the same time. Also this year, Call of Duty itself might be in this unusual spot because of the Activision and Microsoft merger. And speaking of the merger, recently the president of Microsoft has announced that the company has a 10-year contract deal signed to bring Xbox games to Nintendo, and promises games like Call of Duty to run on Nintendo on the same day as it releases on Xbox. Now, the idea of Microsoft is to make sure that their games are available to play in all platforms and people can play wherever they want. However, 2 questions arise. Well, the first is, can Nintendo run Call of Duty because they are literally 2 generations behind? And the second question is, do people actually want to play Call of Duty on Nintendo? And it's also interesting because the merge between Activision and Microsoft has not yet happened, but Microsoft is already signing a deal with Nintendo to bring their games to Nintendo. And also there's no saying whether this merger will even happen or go through this year. Well, it's not all weird so far, because after a huge success of Dead Space Remake, there was an obvious question of what happens if Dead Space 2 and 3 gets remake. Well, according to the game developer Dylan Rogers, it looks like EA is already asking about whether you are interested in a similar remake of Dead Space 2 and Dead Space 3. Now, the publisher has yet to confirm that this is about to happen, and more importantly, the developers of the remake, Motive Studios, are already working on Marvel's Iron Man game. Now, Dead Space 2 specifically holds a special place in my heart, not only because it's a wonderful horror game, but most importantly is that's the first game I got to start my YouTube channel with Dead Space 2 walkthroughs, and it was terrible, but it is how I started. Now, having set that bar up with the quality of Dead Space Remake, I would love to see the Dead Space 2 remake and Dead Space 3 remake. And since you're at it already, why not fix Dead Space 3 overall? For now, Dead Space Remake has sold over 2 million copies, which is a great feat. However, it stands right behind Callisto Protocol in the amount of units sold. But with the amount of fans being happy with the game, I'm pretty much sure that Dead Space Remake is up there. And speaking of fans, it looks like this particular game has fans and critics confused on whether they like this game or not. We'll check this video out to know whether Atomic Heart is any good.